Well, as a civil war grips Syria, it doesn't look like there is an end in sight. This after top Syrian officials are killed. They include the defense minister, the deputy defense minister, the security advisor, and Assad's brother-in-law. Now, it's unclear whether a suicide bomber or a remote explosive device was used in the explosion. And as violence rages on in the region, we want to take a look at just how the conflict is being covered and how the media is shaping public perception of what's going on there, especially after a new poll that shows the public perception of conflicts abroad is just plain wrong. Take a look at this. 63% of Republicans polled still believe there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That's a big difference from Democrats and Republicans. A much smaller number believe in that mistruth to this day. Now, when it comes to Syria, it's very difficult to know just what's happening there. That's because the Syrian government, for the most part, is not letting journalists in the country. But top government leaders here insist that the U.S. is not intervening militarily. But according to the New York Times, there's a lot the U.S. is doing behind the scenes. The State Department has authorized $15 million in non-lethal aid to opposition groups. The U.S. is reviewing options for sending CIA officers to the region to aid the opposition. Reportedly, CIA officers are operating now in southern Turkey. And also, the U.S. is considering providing satellite imagery and aerial surveillance and intelligence on Syrian troops' movements to the opposition. So it's no secret that the opposition is being armed. But who exactly is giving them away? Well, it's unclear, but if they turn to their neighbors, Iraq has a huge stockpile to donate. That's thanks to the U.S. and the billions of dollars taxpayers spent to bring weapons there. And now that the U.S. is leaving, they plan to leave behind a treasure trove of military equipment. From the Huffington Post, the giveaways include enormous, elaborate military bases and vast amounts of military equipment that will be turned over to the Iraqis, mostly just to save the expense of bringing it home. Those bases didn't come cheap. Construction costs exceeded $2.4 billion, according to an analysis of Pentagon annual reports by the Congressional Research Service. So, what do we really know about what's happening in the country, and is a diplomatic solution possible at this point? Joining me now, RT correspondent Marina Portnaya. Marina, hi. So can you tell us more about the resolution, the UN Security Council, this resolution that is being backed by the West?
That's right, Liz. There is a resolution that the Security Council is expected to vote on Thursday morning that has been drafted by the UK and supported by the US, France, Germany, and Portugal. This resolution is drafted under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. What that essentially means is that it calls for sanctions against the Syrian government if the Syrian government does not cease fire and withdraw from heavy populated areas within 10 days. In result, this resolution says that under Chapter 7, if it's supported, that it will extend the UN supervision mission in Syria for 45 days. That mission is set to expire on Friday, and that is the only amount of international observers that are in Syria right now to report back and verify to the Security Council, to the UN, to the international community what's happening. There's 300 unarmed UN observers there right now. They did suspend activities in mid-June, but it is very important for their presence to remain there. According to the UK and its supporters, they will only allow for this mission to be extended if the Security Council agrees to potentially put sanctions against the Syrian government.
Now, Russia and China are at odds with this resolution from the West. Tell us about the resolution they are considering and why they don't agree with the one being backed by the West.
Well, simply put, Russia said it will not support any resolution under Chapter 7 for Syria. Russia has stood firm, saying that sanctions against the Syrian government will not help the situation, the crisis in Syria. Russia has also drafted its own resolution and submitted it to the Security Council, calling for the UN supervision mission in Syria to be extended for another 3 months. Now, the international monitor, Kofi Annan, has asked for the Security Council to put joint pressure on the Syrian government and the armed opposition group to keep them from continuing this violence, to have them essentially cease fire. But Russia believes that the resolution that's been drafted by Western countries is only putting pressure on the Syrian government and is not balancing the circumstance at all.
Now, the latest news is that these high-profile deaths that happened within the Assad regime. I mean, what are the implications of that, and does it mean we're any closer to an end to the crisis there?
I don't think it means that there's any way of being closer to an end of the crisis. If anything, it's exacerbating the violence and the deaths that are taking place in Syria. We heard Washington officials say that the situation in Syria is spiraling out of control. Defense Secretary of the U.S. Leon Panetta said that it's time for the community to increase its pressure on Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and ask him to step down and put his power over to a transitional group. But we have to remember that the Free Syrian Army is also fighting with al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda has come forward in support of the opposition group in Syria, and the U.S. knows this. And we've seen video of some members of the Free Syrian Army in the streets waving al-Qaeda flags. There's also reports coming out by the New York Times in the past few weeks indicating that the CIA some members of the CIA are based in Turkey and are smuggling weapons into Syria. So right now, with this latest blast that has killed very high-level members of the Assad government, I can't imagine that this will bring an end to the crisis anytime soon. If anything, it's exacerbating it.
And now, as things appear to get worse there, Marina, I mean, is a diplomatic solution even possible at this point?
Well, I think that's what the international community is trying to hammer out now. Mr. Kofi Annan is the one that asked for the Security Council to delay its vote for another day so they could reach some type of consensus. But the most important thing, I think, to underscore here is that the UN supervision mission in Syria is quite critical. If that mission, if that mandate does not get extended, the international community is not going to have any groups, any international monitors in there to verify what's taking place in Syria. That could even complicate this exacerbating crisis to begin with. And according to the UK and the Europeans and the US, they will not extend that mandate unless it is under the auspices of Chapter 7 of the UN Charter that allows for sanctions against the Syrian government and potentially somewhere down the line, possibly military intervention, even though the Western countries say that's not what they're going for. But last year, in the case of Libya, we saw that military intervention is possible, and that's something that Russia and China and some other countries do not support.
I do want to bring up one more thing, Marina. The Pentagon has announced that they are sending this aircraft carrier to the region. It's called the USS John C. Stennis. What message could this be sending? We're looking at that aircraft carrier right now. This reportedly on its way over to the region. What message could that be sending?
Well, Liz, clearly that aircraft carrier is not carrying chocolates and flowers. This is not sending a positive message to many that are seeing that aircraft carrier making its way to the Middle East. The U.S. already has 2 aircraft carriers in the region, and now they're sending this one several months early. The original plan was that one was supposed to leave, and then this one was supposed to come in. Now there's going to be a total of 3. U.S. officials would not make it clear as to why they're sending this aircraft carrier, whether it was the questions over Iran's nuclear program, whether it's about the Syrian crisis. U.S. officials just say it's about U.S. security concerns. But clearly, when you send more military into a region that is dealing with a lot of uprising, dealing with a civil war, where one country is in the midst of a civil war, that's not going to help ease the stresses, the nerves, the temperaments of everybody involved. So the U.S. is clearly taking bold moves that may not help a serious situation.
All right, Marina, thanks for keeping us updated. We, of course, will be keeping a very close eye on the way things play out at the UN Security Council. That was RT correspondent Marina Portnaya.